What's going on, you guys? It's your huggable hipster here, and welcome back to another episode of The Casual Nerd. So Netflix is in competition with Game Pass. The Series S might be going away, and Capcom is hinting at a possible remake for Code Veronica X. Let's dive into it. So it states here in the header that Netflix is preparing to battle Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. Here's how it's going to do that. So it states here in the article that Netflix has been experimenting with gaming for a while. It launched a collection of smartphone games around titles such as Stranger Things last year, but it seems its ambitions go much further than making Netflix mobile games. The company's vice president of games says, in quote, "We're seriously exploring a cloud-based rival service to the likes of Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus in order to reach people on their PCs and TV." You know, I think this is actually a pretty good idea, considering the fact that there is no dedicated platform for just PC gamers and for people who are on their TV and mobile. Yeah, you have Game Pass and you have PlayStation Plus, but when you really think about it, those are specific to their respective consoles. There's not really a standalone one for PC players. Now, granted, there are probably going to be much of the same games, Stranger Things, Gotham Knights, all of the usual suspects that we see, but it'll be specific for PC players and mobile users. In theory, this is a really, really cool idea, but I want to see where this goes further because this has potential to be something really great and go off the ground running. I think this has more potential than, dare I say it, Google Stadia. And by the way, all articles are going to be down in the description below per usual, so you guys can read these for yourself as well. Next up in gaming news, it says here in the header that Microsoft needs to cancel the Xbox Series S to save this generation. Yikes. And just keep in mind, by the way, this, I can tell from just reading this is an op-ed kind of just opinion piece. So when you're hearing me say it's from the perspective of the reader. I did not write this piece at all. It states here in the article that the news this week that developers hate the Xbox Series S and have been trying to get Microsoft to stop supporting it was music to my ears for over a year now. I've been frustrated at the slow progress of this generation, and while that is obviously most down to COVID, there are other factors. So many games staying cross-gen because of this pandemic, but the Xbox Series S is not. That's because Microsoft is trying to have its cake and eat it, and it's damaging everyone. I'm not a game developer, but in my frustration at the state of Halo Infinite, I used to be a big Halo fan, I realized that the reason it was so technology backwards was not only because 343 Industries are badly mismanaged, but because they had to make it work on the Xbox Series S. That can make it work if you got a good team, like Playground Games on Forza Horizon, but with a more mediocre developer like 343 or the studio behind Gotham Knights, you got problems. And I've noticed this too, of where, you have backwards compatibility for PS4 and PlayStation 5, but when it comes to Xbox, you have Xbox Series S and X, not Xbox One, which I find very interesting. And people have gotten into such a hissy fit argument with me on Twitter over the fact that I think that, you shouldn't be having games that are new coming out for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Even though they're not saying that's for Xbox One, it'll run on Xbox One. I want to make something abundantly clear here. While I think that within the first year, it was nice that companies were still making games available for the PlayStation 4 for those who still had one, and the Xbox One for those who still had one. I think that's awesome. But the fact of the matter is that technology progresses. Things move at an alarmingly fast rate within the tech sphere. We don't make games anymore for the PlayStation 1. We don't make games anymore for an Atari. We don't make games anymore for a GameCube. Do I need to make my point any clearer? I get that consoles are expensive, but I'm going to state this again, and it's something that I state all the time. Unless you actually work in the gaming industry, gaming is a want, not a need. So I get why people are frustrated because they're putting their hard-earned money into something that they want to get. But at the same time, it's not a need. It's not something that you desperately need to cling on to. It's like, oh, I need that game right away. No, you want that game. Whereas for me and other people who are journalists in the sphere, who do this for a living, who are in this content creation business, yes, we actually kind of need to do this in order to keep up with the trends and to be able to stay relevant. If I stopped buying new games tomorrow and I just only reviewed older games, I get some traffic, but it wouldn't be as much as I would normally get. You see where I'm going with this, you guys? So it's not a matter of like, oh yeah, no, I'm just like a new generation purist or some shit like that. It's to the point of where technology needs to move and progress at the pace that it was when the Xbox One came out in 2016. We need to get back to that. And because of COVID and because of a lot of factors, we were not able to do it. It was halted. So I feel like whenever it comes to this, and whenever it comes to backwards compatibility and that old age discussion, and this is something that I've been thinking about consistently because I knew that I was going to have to talk about this. We should really be doing how Microsoft is doing it, of where you have backwards compatibility that is all digital on the store, of where like you have games literally on Game Pass that are there from the very first Xbox. We should be doing that for PlayStation as well, where it might not be easy to come by a physical copy and you would be able to use a physical copy there, but at least a digital copy is there. That way it's ported over and fans have it, and that way it's not going anywhere. We could do something like that. That way it's more accessible for a lot of people, because the very first Silent Hill game, unless you know how to use an emulator, you're not playing that thing at all. And unless you know how to emulate, and unless you have the very first PlayStation, you're not really getting a chance to play the very first Silent Hill. That's why it's so sought after. That's why it's hundreds of dollars on Amazon or eBay. And lastly, in gaming news, Capcom says maybe to Resident Evil Code Veronica remake. I would love to see a remake. I need to see Steve in that 4K beauty, okay? It states here in the article that it truly is the right time to be into horror game remakes, that's for sure. The foreseeable future is bookended on all sides by official remakes of some of the genre's most beloved classics, from the recently announced Silent Hill 2 remake to next year's Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space remakes. Of course, this has led to many fans looking farther into the future to hope and speculate as to what classics could be next on the docket to receive remakes. Some were hoping Silent Hill 1 would be the first choice over its more famous sequel. Others are interested in seeing Dead Space 2 and 3 get the same fresh coat of paint the original title is getting, but there's one title in particular that a very vocal set of fans have been begging for, many even in our own comments: Resident Evil Code Veronica. Harabayashi-san responded that his focus is currently on the development of Resident Evil 4 Remake and making that the best experience for fans. He continued that there are no concrete plans to develop Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake, but if the opportunity comes, maybe. I want to be able to see that vampire creature come to life. Like, that for me was the best part of the game, was seeing the father just as a vampire, like Nosferatu type creature. It caught me so off guard because I'm so used to Resident Evil being about zombies and being about the T-virus and all that kind of thing. But I feel like that was the first game that really made me think, okay, they're expanding on the virus. It's just such an iconic piece. It's so cool. I absolutely love that game. That one and Darkside Chronicles, absolutely just straight fire. Absolutely amazing. So what are your guys' thoughts on this episode of The Casual Nerd? Do you guys think that the digital versions of consoles were too much and that they just shouldn't be processed anymore in just hopes that other types of consoles will be more readily available for fans? Or do you guys think that, no, the digital consoles are cool, just leave them as they are? Or the fact that Netflix is going to be making their own app for gamers, like, that's just really, really gnarly. And I think that in theory, it's really cool, but I want to know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about this. And if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. I make videos every day here on YouTube. By the way, sorry there wasn't a video yesterday. Speaking of making videos every single day, it just took way too long to process and I wasn't going to publish a video at like 12 midnight. But may you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. See you guys.